What's going on, guys? JD here, owner of the Deals Less Group, with another video talking to a very talented agent in our network by the name of Riley Warwick out of Aspen, Colorado. Guys, this guy is a beast. He's an animal. I'm going to show a couple accolades, or tell you a couple accolades he's done so far, and then we're going to go to him telling himself. First and foremost, him and Jason, his partner, have been in the industry about 60 plus years and have sold over $4 billion in sales, and currently holds a record for the highest selling in Aspen itself, over $70 million. He can probably go to that into more detail, but this guy is awesome, been in the game for a while, but I'll let him tell you more about it himself. Let me bring him to the screen and to the podcast. We have got Riley. What's going on, my man? How are you?
How are you, man? Good to see you.
As well. So, Riley, obviously, we want to bring top agents in our network, and it's super important that we connect agents through our network too, who are doing business at a high volume and really changing the game in real estate and where they reside and where they do business. So, we're going to go through some questions about what you do, what it all looks like, how it started, how you got your game going, and then we'll have a great conversation. Sound good?
Great. Looking forward to it.
All right. So, right now, we're going to start with bragging rights. Bragging rights. It's important to show what you've done, man. You worked super hard for everything you have now, where you're at in the status. So start with that, bragging a little bit about what you do, and then go to how you got started in real estate.
Yeah. So our team is basically it's a group of 5 people. I actually got started I started at the bottom. I basically started working as an assistant for a team or for an agent, and was really just wanted to get into the business and learn the business. And I was answering the phones, filling the coffee maker and the printer, which I think is something that's really important in this business, or any business, is to understand it from the bottom to the top. So in a way, I feel lucky that I kind of started there, and I can understand what it's like to be in that position, to kind of go through and learn the business from every perspective. So fast forward, we've grown into a team of 5. My business partner, Joshua Saslove, and I started the team about 4 years ago. We did about 329 million in sales last year. We did about 380, I think, in 2021. And we have a great group of people, a great team that we work with. That's kind of where we're at now.
That's cool.
And yeah, in terms of getting into the business, would you like me to elaborate on that, or do you have?
Yeah, so I think we'll start with that, your team size, right? So I think it's important to people realize that you don't have to have like a mega team to have good production or good business, right? I mean, so you don't have a big team, as myself, and it's more of having the right people is better than just having bodies, period, right? So obviously at your production level and your success, you're probably really selective on who you bring onto your team, correct?
Yeah, I think that the team culture is probably the most important part. We've had people that we've brought on that didn't necessarily work out, whether it was just culture or different personalities. And so I think the team culture and the team energy, each time you add someone new or take someone out, it really has an effect on the energy of the team. So I think the people are probably the most important part if you decide to go a team route, which a lot of people are doing these days.
Yeah, no, I think it's important that you're true, because if you're not vibing with your team, I mean, either your production level is going to go down, no one's going to be happy. When no one's happy, no one wants to go to the office, right? So you got to have that chemistry, and I think it's important to have that trial period, right? Like, hey, let's see how it goes, and let's see if it works out. And that's that, hire slow, fire quick, and that's I truly believe in that sense too. And creating that team atmosphere is huge, because the same time, Riley, I'm sure you want time off, and knowing if you take some time off, your team can back you up and do what you do at your high level too. And so you're looking for people to make sure they serve the clients just as you do, and that's super important as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of the reason why people get into this business, the real estate business or real estate brokerage, is to have more freedom and more control over their time. And so having a team certainly gives you that flexibility and that freedom to be able to, to rely on your teammates to cover for you when you're gone, and also vice versa.
Yeah.
So I think there are a lot of benefits to having a team. versus just working as a single agent. But
Yeah.
different for different folks.
Yep. And I did a single agent for a little while, and I realized I couldn't do everything by myself or at a high level by myself, because you're only one person, right? So I realized at a certain point as an agent, as a single agent, you're like, I'm actually losing money by not hiring somebody else. It's a concept people don't understand, right? You're actually losing money because you could be out doing the things you should be doing, which is money generating things versus, paper things, right? That's not your highest and best. So I'm sure you learned that at an early age too. Like, okay, this is not working out.
Yeah, you start to hit sort of a wall if you want to scale in the volume. I think it's important to hire the right people or to add people to the team or to grow. But some people don't. Some people prefer to be super high touch and be at every single meeting, or be directly involved.
Yeah.
100% of the time. I think there are pluses and negatives to that. I don't think necessarily you can provide the best service. Counterintuitively, I don't think you can provide the best service that way.
Yeah.
And to your point, I do think that getting out there and driving business is sometimes the best use of people's time.
Absolutely. And then so your team now, so you have 5 now. What made you doing the partnership, or did you guys know each other previous to this, or how'd that work out?
Yeah, so I can go in a little bit more into the background, sort of how I got into the business, and then what brought us here. So I just graduated college. I've moved to Denver, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do.
Sure.
So I was the classic story out of college. You went through 4 years. You just are kind of, I was valeting cars at the time.
Okay.
And so I was really spending a lot of energy thinking about what I should do, what I was good at. I love people and I love design, and I love doing deals. I love hustling and working hard. So I thought, okay, real estate may be a good path for me. So I was looking at New York and LA and looking at all the top markets. I figured I might as well sell expensive homes if I'm going to sell.
Sure.
And as I was doing my research, Aspen came up in the top 10 list, basically, as one of the top 10 markets. And some of the agents I looked up were selling just as much as the top agents in New York and Miami and LA. And it happened to be just down the street. And I had never been to Aspen before.
Yeah. And
so I said, okay, well, instead of a plane ticket, why don't I just drive up the street about 3 hours and check it out? So that's what I did. And I came to Aspen. I thought, okay, this is a market I could probably compete in better than I could compete in New York. It's a smaller market. I thought at the time that it was easier to break into, and turns out that was not the case. But along that path, I met with a handful of the top brokers and basically asked for a job. One of the brokers that I reached out to was Joshua Saslove, my current partner. And although he didn't give me a job, he and I really hit it off. I worked at the front desk of a different company for about 6 months, and we kind of continued to stay in touch. And about plus or minus 6 months after I had moved here, and he said, "Do you have keys yet? Do you have a car?" And I remember I went out and got a car, and I came back and said, "All right, I have a car." And then he said, "Well, do you have a license?" And I came back, I was like, "All right, I'm licensed." And so, he still didn't hire me, but again, we remained friends, and I was always wanting to work for him because he was always seen as sort of a godfather of Aspen real estate. And so after about 6 months of working at that other company, he called me up one day and asked me if I wanted to get coffee. And so we went and got coffee, and again, we hit it off, and he asked me to work for him, long story short. And so then I was his assistant, and was his assistant for probably 3 years, plus or minus. And so, but I was licensed at the time. So I was trying to do deals on the side and really trying to make something happen. What I learned was the Aspen market was incredibly difficult to break into. because it was small, there were only a handful of brokers really doing all the deals.
Yeah.
Most of it's word of mouth. So it was incredibly challenging to break into, but I was in a great position because I was learning from someone and I was getting a small, albeit consistent paycheck, and I could pay my rent, and I could still go out there and have the freedom to talk to people and learn about the market from Joshua and from being in the business.
Yeah.
And then after about 3 years, a friend of mine asked me if I had any deals. He was looking to buy something, and oh wow, okay, so maybe this is my first lead. And I had just left dinner the night before with my roommate at his grandparents' house. And I thought, man, that would be a great property for this guy. It wasn't listed for sale, wasn't for sale. We weren't talking about it at dinner, but I said, you know what? It's not going to hurt for me to call him. So I actually drove up there and knocked on the door, and I said, "Hi, I have a client. I'm Riley. I have a client who's looking for a property. Would you ever consider selling in your wildest dreams?" He said, "Absolutely not. We've been here for 30 years. There's no way we're ever selling, but Riley, we love you and we appreciate you asking." So I left the house defeated. The next day they called me and said, "You know what? Why don't you show it? It can't hurt to show it, right?" So long story short, I ended up selling the house off market, represented the buyer and the seller. And that was the first deal I ever did. Nice. So I had a little walk-in money, and I was very eager to get out on my own and do my own thing. So after that deal, shortly after that deal, I wanted to go out on my own. But me and Joshua, who was my mentor and basically boss at the time, we had a conversation. We loved working together, and we had a great relationship. We worked super hard together, and he was very much ingrained in the community, and had been here for a long time. And I was sort of the young gun who was very ambitious and wanted to, do as much business as I possibly could, and was really high energy and out there.
Sure.
So we made a great team, and we decided to team up, and that's basically where we are today. We started our team, like I said, 4 years ago. So that's the long, short version of how we got to where we are and how we started our team, Saslove Warwick.
That's cool. That's a really good story. Well, yeah, I think it's amazing that you got paid to learn from, like you said, the godfather of Aspen real estate, right? I mean, that's amazing, right? So the things you're able to see at a high level not only just opened your eyes, but also showed you it's possible, right? So you're like, that's great. Right. And that's huge. And for him to do that for you, which is huge. And it goes back to, kudos to him. He's like, I found someone that I vibe with, I mean, I'm also trusting someone with my business that I've created. Right. So he trusts you. And for you to be there for 3 years also showed him like, I'm dedicated to you too. You know what I mean? Just, because, typical assistants don't stay. I mean, some do stay for long-term tenure, whatnot, or some bounce away or do their own thing. But for you to say, hey, no, I want to be part of this, which is huge too. But you saw the potential and you saw, the opportunity was given. But that's really, really cool. It's funny. Everyone I've interviewed remembers their first deal. Like that's one of those things that is usually that first where it catapults you to where you go, right? And that was yours. I mean, and that's something you'll never forget. And I'm sure you've told this story a handful of times as well. And so,
yeah, I think that, the first deal is always super important. And in real estate, as we get paid commission. And so I think being in a position where, you mitigate your risk a little bit, right? You have a little bit of cash in the bank, and you may have 6 months of living expenses saved up, or, I always recommend that to people starting out, is either get in a position that puts you in a position of safety to where you can then go out and take risks, or save up enough money and have enough of a nest egg to be able to go out there and really risk it and go out there and risk not having a paycheck and risk knowing that the only way you're going to make money is if you find a deal. So that's important. And then I think also too, one of the best parts about working with what has become my business partner, but was my mentor, and finding a mentor, I always say you should find a mentor. Agreed. Is I got to sort of walk next to him throughout all these deals that we were doing, very high end deals, very specific clientele. And it gave me the bedside manner, it gave me the temperament. It made me very comfortable around um, these clients that we work with. And I was doing it every day for 3 years. And so it just naturally, when I decided to start brokering myself, um, it kind of gave me a head start, and just the temperament and how to act, and how to be in the bedside manner required to deal with we deal specifically in the super ultra prime high end part of the market. And it allowed me to be able to sort of coast into that
Right.
position without much difficulty.
I'm a sports guy, so I'm going to use his analogy as he is the Brett Favre and you're like the Aaron Rodgers in the situation, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd say that's flattery, but I appreciate that analogy.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? He did really well because he transitioned. He followed what to look. It was a more of a nice transition versus like, hey, you're taking the next step. Like what? What do I do? You know what I mean? So that's great.
Yeah, and I could make a lot of mistakes. He corrected a lot of my mistakes before I made them.
Yeah.
Right. Like whether it's email, something small, or whether it's how to approach just the mindset going into a meeting or a listing presentation. Correct a lot of my mistakes before they happened. And if you are committed to this business long term, and you're not just in it for a quick turnaround and then go off and do something else, it's worth the upfront time commitment to have a mentor and to really learn and make those mistakes behind the scenes versus in front of the client.
Yeah, I agree. I think I tell everyone that if you're looking to do real estate, either do one or two things. Go new construction because they actually pay you to learn the industry and you get to sell a really cool product. They learn how to do a home demonstration. You learn top to bottom how the home's constructed. So that's what I did I learned so much, and that's really, I think, made me successful in general. Or to Riley's point, get a mentor, get someone who really is dialed in, who runs a business. And everyone I've interviewed so far is not a realtor. They're a business. You know what I mean? And that's truly the difference, right? To your point, Riley, you're not just kind of like, let's see what happens. I'll get a paycheck here and there. It's like, no, we are dialed in. We are really a multi-million dollar business. There's no difference from us than a brick and mortar down the street. We just happen to sell real estate too,
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yep. So now next question, we're in 2023. Obviously the market is very unique in itself, so tell us what your business looks like in 2023. And did you prepare yourself in 2022 leading to what's happening now?
So I think first of all, I think we're very blessed and in a comfortable position over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
As real estate brokers. I don't care if you're working in Indiana or Las Vegas or Aspen or wherever you may be.
Yep.
It was just a different game over the last 3 years. In 2023, I think we've doubled down across the board in terms of we've made a great hire on our team. We've doubled down on marketing, and I would say it's a 24/7 grind.
Yeah.
The time required to sell a property, on the listing side, and the time required to work with a buyer, is fivefold or tenfold what it was.
Yeah.
I think you really have to, in order to get any juice, you really have to squeeze, and you really have to put in the time and energy. I think, I just think right now, at least in Aspen, the inventory's down, prices are up, there are still buyers. But because of that scenario and everything going on with interest rates and the banks and everything going on in the world, you have to get creative. You're not just taking orders anymore. You have to come up with the plan. You have to find the deals. You have to get the insider information. You have to be talking to your peers. You have to understand, where a great deal may be, what's not a great deal, and where some off-market opportunities may be. And you have to go out there and you may have to videotape 15 properties before you find one that works for your client. not necessarily because it's the property, but because it fits, because the seller's in a certain position, the buyer's in a certain position, and the right area, and it's the right perfect match. And so it requires so much more time. And I think that it's going to weed out this market that we're in. I think we'll weed out a lot of brokers that either got into the business recently or brokers that aren't necessarily committed to the business.
Right.
So for us that are very committed and have, as you said, run the real estate, our team and our business as a real business, not just a side gig, I think that it'll be beneficial for us.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the current market is definitely going to weed out a lot of people. I really, really do. In a sense, if you don't have a consistent either funnel or marketing plan or just repeat business is huge too, and all that stuff is so important right now. And I definitely believe that the next 5 years is going to change the game for real estate too, in that sense. And that goes into a question down the road for us, but that's good, man. I think that, I think 2020, 2021, 22 was a blessing for a lot of newer agents at the time. We're like, oh, this is cake. This is easy. You put a home in the market, multiple offers, like, oh, this is how real estate is always? No,
right.
Not. Right. And people are starting to realize like, no, that's not realistic. So I always believe in any kind of market, the true agents, true businesses are the ones that are going to rise up all day, every day, right? And right now it's market share for you, Riley, and for myself too, what we're doing right now too. And that's important too. But double down. And double down is such a good idea right now, especially when people are weeding out. That's like, all right, if we're less competition, then it's time for us to rise and to double down and go all in at this point. You know what I mean? And your clients will recognize that too. You know what I mean? That you're more out there too. You're like, wow, rates are bad, Riley. And but you're still doing well. Like, yeah, that's just what we do. You know what I mean? We're there for our clients, kind of thing. And also, to your point, is being creative. I can't express that enough. Being creative with whether it be the financing, of off-market properties, or talking to clients from, who, like your point where you said, hey, have you thought about it? And they're like, you know what, I really haven't, but what are we talking right now? And it could open other doors, right? And like, oh, we never considered selling right now because we didn't think it was a good time. Like, no, I have a buyer literally standing by who wants this area, but there's nothing available. So you might get top dollar in today's market. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, cool. So, but it's really having that dialogue, and you're saying working with peers. I think working with local people in your network, whether it be financial advisors, all that in your Rolodex too, because they're going to reach out to you in a market like this. They're going to, I'm sure, Riley, get calls pretty often from like, hey, what's going on? What are we seeing? All that stuff. And that obviously being an important tool for your local peers is very important as well.
And to one little addition to that is, I think a lot of brokers see other brokers as competition.
Yeah.
And they are competition. But I encourage agents and brokers in their markets to see other brokers as their as sort of on their team. And if you develop positive relationships with other agents in your market, and trust each other and work together, you would be astonished at how much you can accomplish and how much more enjoyable your business is, how many more deals you get done, and how much better the market, because you're getting a different perspective, and they're dealing with 5 or 6 buyers, and so are you, but their buyer pool may be from a different area, and so they're thinking about things differently, and that will affect you down the road when you list a property, because the way his or her buyer group is thinking, and so I just encourage. I think it's not talked about enough, is that agents should develop positive relationships with their peers in the same business, and should seek to learn as much from them as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think in the last couple of years for me, I realized there's enough to go around, right? There really is. You know what I mean? And people are always scared, and the scarcity of like, oh, they're going to take all my business. And obviously it's very competitive. Obviously you always should protect your business. That's always, you should be doing that regardless. But to your point, Riley, if you work well with others, and also, I always say this to another new agent, when I'm like, our goal is always to either help buy or sell a home for our clients. So let's work together on both sides to get this done. There's no reason for someone to puff your chest more than necessary. And that's not it's weird to me. It's like, we have a common goal, man. If we don't get it there, I get it. It's fine. But we have the same common goal. Let's see how we can do for each other. We're not trying to say who's bigger, badder, and I care less. My clients,
the most successful agents in any market know very intimately exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
And they have a mindset of abundance, not a mindset of scarcity. And I think if you don't have that, do everything you can to work on adopting that mindset.
Yeah, I agree. Next question for you. Because the market has changed, you did talk about that. Homes are staying on the market a little longer. I don't know about Aspen. Obviously, educate on Aspen real estate. If they're staying on longer, how are you telling your clients? What are you telling them? What's your dialogue look like? Saying, hey, the market has shifted, but this is what we're doing to counter or hopefully counteract what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I think it's our job as our client's advisor to be as well informed, not only in our market, but across the country and across the world as we possibly can. We have to know what's going on in their life, whether they're working on Wall Street or they're in the oil and gas business or the real estate developers in Miami, or whatever they may be.
Right.
So I think it's super important to stay informed in general, okay, globally and locally. So not only in your own market. And secondly, I think when you have that mindset and you understand that you're an advisor to this person for their local asset, which happens to be in some markets a very substantial asset, I think that it's important. What I do is I provide information. I think it's very important to be objective, and if there's great news, I share it about the market. If there's a great comp or whatever it may be, but I'm not afraid to share with them objective negative news as well, because for their stock, they can look up their stock price every second of every day during trading hours or even after trading hours. And so as their advisor for their local asset here in Aspen particularly, I am not afraid to share with them, hey, the market is cooled. We are off in number of sales by 20%, and inventory may be up 20% or number of new listings may be up 20%. So we're really in a changing market. And I just want you to know that. Or, the market has changed since the third quarter of last year. Interest rates have doubled. And depending on your timeline, maybe we should have a powwow and discuss what your goals are.
Yeah. And
that may be a price adjustment. That may be a different marketing approach. Again, like I said, we doubled down on our marketing this year. So we're doing new listing videos, and we're doubling down on paid digital ads and social media ads, and we're doing all sort of alternative marketing efforts as well. And so I think it takes that extra effort in order to get these properties the exposure that they need. But at the same time, and probably more importantly, it requires honest conversation and steady studying of your market and understanding what's happening. And again, it goes back to my point earlier about conversations with other agents in your market and seeing what they're talking about, what they're seeing and what their buyers are saying, what their sellers are saying. And they may, you may be working with a different group of people, and they may say, all my buyers are completely gone. They are totally cold on ads on real estate or Aspen, and they're not going to buy a second home anywhere, and they're going to pause for another 6 months. Okay, that's a very useful piece of information. And so that's what we're trying to do, is we're just trying to keep our clients informed on, basically insider information with pertaining to the market, whether it's good or whether it's bad. Constantly, that's our goal.
Right. Yeah, I think it's also important too that you and I, Riley, we actually have boots on the ground, right? We're actually doing the business, right? So we actually can see what's happening in real time. So if we're not talking to our clients about what we're seeing in real time, we're not doing them a favor, right? So how are you communicating that? Are you doing like email blasts? Are you doing what does that look like in your business? Talking about what's happening.
A lot of it is direct. We try to have conversations with our clients every day, if not every week. Or if, we try to do as much as possible. Some people do not like that much communication.
Sure.
But we try to communicate with them as much as possible with every new piece of information. And it's objective. It's not, hi, give me a call, I need to explain something to you. It's sometimes I'll shoot them a quick email that says, FYI, this just closed today for 26 million and was worth 35 last year, or it sold last year for 20 and it just sold off market for 26. The market's still strong, or whatever it may be, and just providing data points so they feel comfortable in where they stand, or uncomfortable and they want to pick up the phone and readjust our approach. So we communicate broadly. I would say as much as possible, we communicate via calling and text message, which is the most personal, direct. If it's more of a passive update, we will typically send an email. And then more broadly, for people that we aren't working with directly in the buying process or in the selling process, but are maybe like secondary, either sellers or buyers who were in the market or thinking about getting to the market. We try to provide as many market updates as possible via newsletters.
Got it. And then you deal with all of the ultra luxury. How do you get a lot of pushback from your clients on showcasing their home? I mean, obviously their home is their home, right? When you're like, my goal is to showcase this beautiful property, right? We have to do video and photography kind of thing. Are they a little more reluctant to do so? Or do you see a little, mixed emotions from that? I'm just curious on that, because you definitely deal with clients who are, could be a little more private than normal, or, so what does that look like?
It's a great question, and you're absolutely right. At the very high end of the market, you have a lot of clients that are private. Sometimes they don't want any photography taken. In which case we say, look, we'll shoot the house. We have to have some collateral to share. But we'll privacy protect it via a password, or we'll have a client sign an NDA, which is very common. We had one property we had like 45 NDAs signed for. No photography, no video, nothing. Wow. So it's very common. Most of it, I would say, most clients if they are officially want to list the house, they're okay with photography and video. The biggest pushback is with PR. A lot of clients are hesitant to do PR for their property, which I can totally understand. But as you know, just as well as anybody, you only have so much control over the press. And if there's a significant home that's listed, we just had one last week. We listed a property, had a conversation with the client, decided not to do any PR whatsoever. And of course, we get a call from the Wall Street Journal today. They're running a story, and they're going to pull old photos.
Oh no!
So that at that point, then you say, okay, should we provide high quality imagery because it's going to be printed regardless? So it's definitely an ongoing conversation, and it's probably one of the most common conversations we have at the ultra high end. But I will say, the old adage, people want what they can't have, is certainly true, especially in Aspen. And if you have an off-market property, that's great, and you can't see it anywhere, and the only way they can see it is
appointment
in person or via some protected link, and there's 5 photos versus 50, and really they get in there and they see it, and it's incredible. It's a great way to find the right buyer, weed out buyers that aren't real serious, and also to create sort of a
like exclusivity.
Create sort of like you want what you can't have sort of thing, and the exclusivity.
Of it. Yeah, and
Yeah,
that
so it
makes
can work in your favor, to be honest with you.
yeah, I makes complete sense, right? If no one can see it, but by appointment only, you're the only one knows what's inside, kind of thing. Oh yeah, people want to see that for sure. The curiosity is super high, right? And of course, if they fall in love with it, they're like, okay, no one's seen this yet, just myself. All right, you know what I mean? So that's another good thing. So
Right.
yeah, so I can see both. I can see arguing for both. Like, let's get the PR going on. This is all that. Sure. But then I see the other side too. So that's interesting. So you just got to kind of gauge the client itself and see what the direction they're leading towards, and then obviously cater to that. That makes sense.
Yeah, we will literally have buyers. I've had multiple buyers. We have had multiple buyers that I may share an off-market property with them, and they say, "Has anyone seen it?" And some cases I'll say, "Yes, I showed it to someone last week." Say, "Not interested."
Wow.
Or I say no, and they're like, "Okay," and they fly in the next day and they'll look at it. So that definitely exists.
Interesting. That's interesting. Huh? Cool. And then obviously you do ultra luxury. Is there new construction going on there right now, or is it, educate us on that?
Yeah, so Aspen's inventory is finite. There's no more of it. What's built is built. There may be a few single family lots, but in terms of the whole inventory of Aspen, it's not much. It's not like we have a 250 unit high rise coming.
Yeah.
And so the new construction that you have is not multifamily. It's a one-off home here and there.
Okay.
Historically, we have had a lot of spec home development, I would say over the last 5 years, where you tear down something old and you develop a new home on speculation that you'll sell it for more than your cost. And so a lot of that inventory, the single family spec home inventory, sold off over the last 5 years. And there are a few projects now underway, but the permitting process in the city and the county is very long, sometimes up to year, 2 years just to get permits.
Jeez.
Which makes the construction process also very long. But in terms of new development, there is a new hotel being built. It was approved via what was called the Gorsuch House development, which was a hotel at the base of Lift 1A, which is basically the opposite side of the mountain from where the gondola is.
Mhm.
So to the west side of the mountain, from where the current gondola is. The Amman Group ended up buying that land and those building rights from the Gorsuch House developers. They haven't broken ground yet, but it's my understanding that that will be moving forward with an Amman hotel and a few condos as well. But that's several years out, and I'm not 100% sure if the Amman Group will be developing an Amman hotel and an Amman branded condo aspect to it. I'm not 100% on that, but I do know, and you can look it up, that the Amman Group did purchase the land and the development rights.
Got it.
Beyond that, there's a Lift One Lodge, which is right next to that. And aside from that, there's a few commercial developments going on.
Yep.
And but there's no 250 unit condo buildings coming to market or anything like that.
Got it. And then your buyer profile, or Aspen in general, second home, super high there, vacation homes, correct, versus primary?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I would say Aspen's not a housing market.
Yeah.
Aspen is a discretionary purchase, similar to art, similar to a boat, a plane. It is not a housing market.
Yeah.
This is all secondary, third. Yes, you have a small percentage of people that moved here during COVID from New York and from other big cities
Sure.
that are raising their family here because it's such a great place to raise a family. The schools are incredible. We have a hospital nearby. We have an airport 5 minutes down the road. The cultural events like the Aspen Institute, the music festival, the food and wine festival. It's an incredible place to raise a family.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, this is all second home, third home, etc. And it's the buyer profile and the homeowner profile is we were a long time ago, maybe 30 years ago, we were very much Hollywood driven, and then we were very tech driven or hedge fund driven, and then tech driven, and now we're very much a mix of everything. We're you know, different industries across the Midwest. We're in oil and gas. We're Wall Street guys, a hedge fund, real estate developers, hotel developers. We're private companies that just IPO'd over the last 3 years. As you know, there are a lot of IPOs.
Yeah.
A lot of young families that are buying property here. So we really are a mix of everything.
That's crazy. That's cool. Yeah, I assumed it was second home, not investment, but vacation homes kind of thing. But I didn't think about like schools and hospitals. Obviously, you got to have that for the locals too, right? So, but it makes sense that it's more driven to that. So that's good. That's good. So your marketing on that, it's got to be so different because of that too. I mean, it's very unique in that sense. It's here we're master plan driven, community based. It's very much like everywhere else,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'm wondering if your market's very similar to like a Palm Desert or, one of those, or the Hamptons where, more second homes and, stuff like that.
Yeah, I would say we're very similar to the Hamptons as well as Palm Beach.
Yeah.
Very similar to those. I would say Palm Beach is Aspen on the water.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's very similar. It's sort of landlocked. We're landlocked. Essentially, we're surrounded by Bureau of Land Management and National Forest Service land, and we're not expanding out. Again, what's built is built. So our inventory is finite. Same with Palm Beach being an island, sort of the Hamptons as well.
But I think it's controlled on purpose too, because if you start building out, it's going to lose the Aspen feel that people want and desire, right? So,
well, it's just all not private land.
Yeah.
We're just, there's in the wintertime, there's one way in Aspen, one way out.
Yeah.
It's a dead end.
Yeah.
And we're just surrounded by, again, National Forest Service and Bureau of Land Management land. It's just not private land.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just wild forest.
Yeah.
So Aspen's a small little pocket, and you physically, whether you want it to or not, you can't expand it.
Yeah, that's true. That's why I think people are starting. That's why, I'm sure why prices are so high, right? It's just because it's limited, right? So it's what kind of what you see is what you get. So it makes sense.
Exactly.
So question for you now, as we talk about real estate changing, obviously we think in the future, 5 years from now, obviously what do you see happening with real estate in 5 years, from technology to people working remotely now kind of thing, all that stuff, where do you see it going? And, what do you guys double down on for that?
In Aspen or in general?
Yeah, you can start local and then general. Yeah.
Locally, I because of the nature of our market being, again, so finite in inventory and so challenging to get here and so highly desirable, I don't think it will change much. I don't think the brokerage business will change much specific to Aspen.
Sure.
And I think that we will just see an increase of Aspen will become more desirable and then therefore more exclusive, and it will be sort of a self-fulfilling, cycle.
Yeah.
Because it's more desirable, it becomes more expensive, and then it becomes more exclusive, and because it's more exclusive, it will become more desirable.
Yeah.
It's also very challenging to get to and expensive to get to. So I think it has that barrier to entry sort of that will keep it exclusive and therefore valuable and sought after. Not to mention it's absolutely gorgeous. And it's a very high quality of life when you spend time here. So that's Aspen locally. Real estate in general, with remote work, it's interesting. I think that surrounding areas to like just outside of New York or just outside of LA, or areas like Palm Springs, like you mentioned, or there's a town outside of Aspen, two hours outside of Aspen, called Grand Junction. It's one of the largest towns in or cities in Colorado has a population in Glenwood or in Grand Junction proper of 60,000 people, but the industry there's no real industry there. Okay. So I think but the population has almost doubled in the last 9 years.
Okay.
The majority of the workforce there works at a hospital, but the population that has grown there over the last 3 years is all remote work. They run a business, they own a business in California, or they run a business in Texas, or they work remotely from someplace in Nashville or Chicago, and they live in Grand Junction, which is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
So I think that we are going to see more of that.
Yeah.
People are going to continue to flee towards higher quality of life areas where there's a lot of outdoor activities, great food, quick access. There's also an airport in Grand Junction. There's a Grand Junction airport.
Nice.
And it's the hub of distribution for basically the mountain region of Colorado. So I think that you will see more people move out of super high tax areas,
right,
and flee more towards lower tax, higher quality of life areas, and continue to run their businesses remotely. And what effect that will have, I'm not totally sure, but it's fascinating for me to think about.
Yeah.
Just people working basically from home,
yeah,
and running a business in California and paying taxes in Colorado.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is very interesting. And then also to the demographics of those areas.
Yeah, I think
it's very interesting.
Yeah, I think you nailed it in the head in a sense where people are looking, since COVID, I think really opened people's eyes to quality of life. In a sense, like I want to be somewhere where I can feel good in my home, comfortable at home, not trapped in my home or feel trapped kind of in my home kind of thing. So I think that opened people's eyes like, okay, well, if this were to ever to happen again, I want to be in a spot where I'm good, right? So to your point, if you can work somewhere else, live somewhere else where you can work somewhere else, remotely kind of thing. So people are definitely choosing the states that have, you said, more outdoorsy opportunities, whether it be a lake, hiking, more trees alike. And then of course, saving on taxes is a benefit too. But yes, people still want to be near at least an airport. Obviously, medical is important too. Obviously, if you have families, a decent school district too. So I call it the migration of the coastlines. They're just coming inwards, right? So people from California are going in, people from New York are going in, and kind of finding those spots. So Nevada, Arizona, Oregon are doing really well in those. Utah, and then for the East Coast, the Carolinas are doing really well. Tennessee, all this, they're just really doing well because they're adopting those people who are like, I don't need to live in New York or California and pay these higher taxes, and also quality of life sometimes too. But companies are some of them are adjusting their pay because they know where they live now too. So that's kind of the hoopla about that too. So that's interesting how that works. But sometimes people are willing to sacrifice a little income because it's a cheaper place to live where they're going, or they're just happier, period. And so they're outweighing that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it will be very interesting to see. I mean, even if you look relatively locally in Colorado, people are moving out of Denver and moving up to, ski towns, or moving to Moab, Utah, because they can work from Moab and go for a hike in the afternoon. It's just it's fascinating to see all these sort of secondary markets, and whether they'll become primary markets or if it's just more, it will just sort of even out the density, or I don't know. I don't think I'm smart enough to know, but it's very interesting to watch.
Yeah, I think I could see it almost like we're going to have a lot more smaller metropolitan cities than we've ever had, if that makes sense, right? Just a lot more pockets, you know what I mean? It might not become like the big major city, but they'll be really healthy where they're kind of doing their thing, you know what I mean? Not enough to have their own sports team, but enough to have a minor team, you know what I mean? We're like, cool, we have a ballpark or whatnot. And so I can see that happening for sure. But obviously the driver is always hospitality, some kind of industry to keep them, either growing or staying par to the rest of the country. So that, to your point, I don't know, but I think I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah. So obviously you've been in the game, Riley. Well, first you mentioned Aspen food and wine thing, that is on my bucket list, by the way. Like I see I'm a Top Chef fan, and so they always talk about the Aspen Wine Festival. I definitely
Mm-hmm.
I love food so much. Like I work out to eat. I mean, it's literally my motivation. So I
Yeah.
can't wait to hit that up one day. I heard it's just incredible.
You got to come this summer.
Yeah, I definitely. I trust me. I will. I know, but I'm a fan. So obviously you've been in the game for a while, Riley. Obviously, you're very successful in what you do. We and Douglas Elliman, we have a lot of either established agents, veteran agents, newer agents, whatnot. What would you tell an agent right now? Who's in the industry right now? What piece of advice? I mean, we talk about mentorship and joining a team. What other advice would you give someone to not only be in the real estate game, but having a successful longevity career?
Mm-hmm. The advice I would give would be to go back to basics. I would say it's a lot of the times, I think when you're struggling in this business or in any business for that matter, you kind of think you're missing something or you don't know some secret sauce or some secret trick. And at the end of the day, just go back to basics. Go call as many people as you can, or turn over as many leads as you possibly can. Go knock on doors. Go make it your mission to go to a restaurant and meet 5 people, hand out 5 business cards. Just go back to basics.
Yeah.
Stop trying to do so many tricky things or Instagram targeted this or this and that. I mean, yes, there's a time and a place for marketing and that sort of thing, but just learn your market. Spend an entire day studying your MLS or going to open houses and learning your market and preparing for an opportunity. And so I would just say, go back to basics. And I know this isn't just one piece of advice, but
No.
once that hard work turns up a lead or an opportunity, literally treat that opportunity like if they're not satisfied with your service, then you'll never get another client again. So play that game with yourself and say, okay, this is my one client. This is my one mission. Block everything out. Delete social media off your phone. Stop going out with friends on the weekends too late. Focus on this one deal. Get it across the finish line, or at least provide a satisfactory experience for your client. And then move to the next one and do the same thing again. And I promise you, after you do that 2 or 3 times, you will have 5 people calling you, asking you to help them either selling their home or trying to buy a piece of real estate.
Yeah. No, that's great advice. Let's start with the first one, in the sense of you want to, I think, you want to be start from the basics, right? You want to know your business, right? You want to be, I believe in that too. I believe in face-to-face goes so much farther than social media posts or, like to your point, you should do it. That's part of the business. I get it. You know what I mean? But if you're not connecting with people, if you're not reaching out to people, what I've took from that, what I do too, is I call more people now just to say, how you doing? What's going on? You know what I mean? And
just checking in.
Exactly. Versus like, hey, your home, it's gone so much in value. It is they don't want that call from me. They want to know.
Yeah, a lot of the times what you don't want to do is talk about real estate. You want to shock someone by not talking about real estate.
Exactly.
You say, by the way, who's that guy who cut your hair that you mentioned you said you love? Oh, okay, thanks. I got to run, but appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hang up. Like, whoa, he didn't call me to try to get me to come look at a property?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like, be a human.
Yeah.
And know that people are people. They don't always want to talk about real estate. But yeah, go back to the basics and just work hard. Call expired listings.
Yeah.
Call as many leads as possible. Make it a goal to give out 5 business cards. Just trust the process and just be very basic in your approach and work hard at it. And don't spend all this money marketing if you're just starting out. Just know your stuff and go back to basics. And then again, I would say once you get that lead and get that opportunity, literally treat it like it's the most important thing in your life, at least for the time being. And you do that a couple times, and you will have referral business like you've never had before.
Absolutely.
And also you'll be proud of your work and you'll create a great business.
Yeah. I think it's the best compliment I receive when I'm dealing, because as we know, as agents, we literally, I say that we're juggling at least 10 to 15 clients at one time, whether it be buying or selling, interested or whatnot. And they all feel like that's the only client I'm working with. Right. And they're like, I'm sorry for calling. I'm like, no, it's okay. Like, of course I'm here for you kind of thing. And they're like, I don't know how you do that. I'm like, it's just kind of, you get in that groove, right? And kind of thing. But
Yeah.
it's so important to spread that love equally in a sense where it makes sense, not overwhelming anybody, but just let them know I'm there for you. I'm obviously there for you guys. That's my job kind of thing. Is an important purchase you may be doing or important something you're selling. But that's important too. But I'm with you. If you do a good job and really dedicate to that client, you'll be proud of your work. And of course, I think tenfold, they're going to refer someone to you because of how well you treated them as well. So it's super important for especially longevity in this career.
It is. There's no better reward than getting an email introduction from a past client to a new client and them saying, JD is the best real estate broker. I've done deals for 30 years and I've never worked with a better real estate broker in my life. You have to call him.
Yeah.
There is nothing more rewarding in this business than being in that position and seeing an email like that or getting on a phone call and someone saying that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the biggest comments I ever got was he didn't tell me right away. I was selling an investment home for a guy who lives in California, but he was a broker, but he didn't tell me right away until we're kind of gotten the deal. And he's like, I was just testing. He's like, I'm not gonna lie, you're a phenomenal agent. I'm a broker in California. You got your stuff on lock. I was like, well, I appreciate that, but why didn't you tell me? You know what I mean? But that was a comment because he's been in the game for 30 plus years too, right? He's like, yeah, man. And he's like, how long have you been? He's like, super impressed. And he's like, well, I appreciate that. But yes, to your point, people who've been in the industry who kudos to anyone else or whatnot, or who've done a lot of transactions, period. I'm sure you have clients too, Riley. You're like, man, this is my 5th, 7th home, but by far the best experience was with you, Riley. 100%, right? And that goes far. It's super important. Anyone can sell a home. Anyone can buy a home. We get that part. It's the between part where it matters. 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So right now, obviously, you're in Aspen. So now Riley in Aspen, Colorado. Obviously, you can hit him up, reach out to him if you have any questions. His handle is up there above his name there. You can find him, follow him there. But where else are you? Where else can they find you? I know you said you're doing other marketing things or anything else. They can watch you, follow you, reach out to you. What do you like?
We have a team account as well, Saslove Warwick, or at Saslove Warwick, and also our website, saslovewarwick.com. That'll basically keep you in the loop.
Cool. All right. We are at 57 minutes, man. So we've been talking for a long time, almost an hour. It went by pretty quickly. So I'm going to give you one last bonus question, okay? It's a fun question here. If you could get any music or band to play a private concert for you, who would it be and why?
Right now, probably, believe it or not, Chris Stapleton. I'm totally into Chris Stapleton right now.
Very cool.
I saw him last year at actually the Labor Day Music Festival here in Aspen, and I'm telling you, he's better live than he is on I guess on your phone or on Spotify. But he's incredible. So private concert, probably Chris Stapleton. So if you can make a phone call or connect that would be great. I hope that's why you're asking me this question.
Exactly. Actually, he's coming on screen right now. Did he sing the national anthem, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, I think, my favorite national I've ever heard.
I would agree.
Yeah, I mean,
I would agree.
It was because I didn't know what to expect. You know what I mean? Some guitar, like, all right, it's gonna be cool. And then when he started, I was like, oh, this is different.
Incredible.
Yeah, it was incredible. Yeah. No, and then of course you see the athletes crying. I'm like, all right, it got me good. Yeah. Well, cool, man. Well, I want to say I appreciate you coming on, and you gave a lot of great information, man. And obviously, kudos to you and your business. You guys are doing obviously amazing things out there, and I'm definitely going to take you up on the offer. Maybe come out this summer because that's been on my list for a long time to the Food and Wine
Gotta
Festival.
do it.
But no, man, I want to say thank you so much for your time, and congrats again. And obviously, guys, if you have any questions, obviously Aspen Real Estate, he's your go-to guy for that. Great business, and he's one of us. So once again, thank you. I appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of the week, and of course, I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks for having me, JD. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Thanks, Riley.
All right.